Welcome back, Troglodytes, to the Trogly's Guitar Show. Today we have a 2009 Gibson Les Paul Studio Faded series guitar in a satin black finish. Now, the Les Paul Studio was introduced in 1983. It had three different tiers then: the Studio, Studio Standard, Studio Custom, and since then there's been a billion different variations on the Studio, and here is another one of these that I get to present to my channel. Now, what makes this one interesting for me is it does not have a maple top. This is a strictly mahogany guitar, and if you know anything about 50s Les Pauls, the original Les Paul Customs were actually pure mahogany guitars before they switched over to a maple top. So if you're interested in a reissue like that, that's what makes a 57 custom reissue interesting, is the mahogany top. So if you're looking to capture those types of tones, this might be a decent option for you. It still has a carved top to it. It's not a flat top or anything. What I really like about this model is it has all this wood grain, and this is a satin finish, so that means you can still feel all of this wood grain. It kind of gives this guitar an interesting evil vibe to it. It's almost been completely blacked out from the factory. All you'd have to do to complete the blackout is change out the factory chrome pieces right here and get yourself some black tuners. Now, I am a huge advocate of Les Paul Studios. My favorite Les Paul, the one that I recommend to everybody that I did a video on yesterday, was actually pretty much the first Studio. That one is called a The Paul. However, those don't float everyone's boat as far as cosmetics, and some people need the full-sized body. And that's when Les Paul Studios really do become a huge value. I actually prefer playing Studios than I do the really high-end custom fancy flame top stuff. Those guitars are beautiful, and that's why I kind of collect them and I deal in them, because I think they're beautiful works of art as well as being functional. But these guys are your workhorses. They ain't exactly pretty. You don't have to be scared of these guitars. You can just hammer into these things and not even care, because who's gonna care if you've got finish missing off of a Studio, or if you've got scratches and buckle wear, nicks and dings? It doesn't matter. There's something very freeing about a low-end Gibson Studio. This has your same electronics as a Les Paul Custom from the current era. You have a 490R in the neck and a 498T in the bridge with Gibson branded pots. But all you're really missing here is like the binding, a nice maple top, and you're also missing binding on the neck, and you don't get a fancy Gibson logo. Now, it might just be me, and it comes down to personal preference, but I actually kind of prefer fretboards without binding on them. If I was ever going to buy a 52 gold top, I would seek one of the earlier ones out that doesn't have the fret edge binding. There's just something freeing about not having all that binding in the fret nibs. Now, sure, it doesn't look as fancy as if it did, but I don't know, it's just like there's so much more fretboard room for some reason, even though there's really not. Now, Gibson has done many faded series of guitars, and they pretty much all look like this. They're just bare bones rockers. I'm a big fan of like the faded V's as well. You can pick those up for relatively cheap, and they are great guitars as well. So this example appears to be all original except for one thing, and it's the weirdest strap lock system I've ever seen. I think they call them locks, L-O-X-X, and the guy I bought this guitar from, I think he gave me a strap with the counterparts, but I appear to have misplaced it. So I had to play this one sitting down, and I thought, hey, why not for the fun of it, I just put a capo on the second fret. So let's go ahead and hear how this guitar sounds with all that shenanigans. Now that we know how this guitar sounds, let's go ahead and look at its condition. Now this was clearly somebody's workhorse guitar. You can see it's got some scratches and scuffs along the edges, but for the most part the headstock's not too bad. The truss rod works just fine, and the truss rod cover is the original one that says Studio. You still have your original nut on this one, and the frets show very minor wear, and I believe this is a rosewood fretboard. I'm not 100% sure, it could be baked maple or something, but I'll let the comments section tell me if this 2009 has some weird stuff on it. Now this guitar, since it has this faded satin finish on it, it's not really going to show scratches as much as it will like nicks and dings, but this finish is extremely thin. And what that means for you is if you play this guitar at all, the finish is just going to come off. And that is extremely evident along the edges of this guitar. There's just finish missing all over the place. Back of the headstock, our serial number on this one is 0204-90573. That makes this a 2009 model, and you can see there is a very small chip off the headstock. It's likely hit against a cymbal or something and just splintered the wood a tiny little bit. I could touch all these little areas up with my little black lacquer pen, but I don't know, I thought it kind of gave this guitar a cool vibe, so I left it alone, but if you'd like me to, I would gladly do it for you. Now this neck has a 60s profile to it in my opinion, and you can see you've got a few marks of where a capo was. I don't think I caused that one, but I'm guessing that's how that got there. But you've got some nicks and dings up here from like a ring as well. But for the most part, I didn't notice any of that while playing this guitar. And you can see that the finish is kind of worn along the side of the neck, just because, again, this finish is just so ridiculously thin, it almost allows the guitar to breathe. And I know that sounds cork sniffery, but there really is something to these light finishes. The back of the guitar, once again, beautiful wood grain to this. You've got a little area of wear here, and you've got lots of finish wear and tear. It's just a beautiful, well-played example. The sides of the guitar have similar wear and tear as the back. You can see the finish is missing along the edges, and there's impression lines. But for the most part, once you start playing this guitar though, you really don't see any of these areas of missing finish. So it almost feels like a really clean guitar, but yet you're not scared to play it at all. So overall, I would say it's in good shape. Let's go ahead and look at it under Blacklight. Now, it's a fairly modern guitar, so it's not going to glow a lot, but you can see where the sweat has been absorbed into the finish right here, so it glows a little bit more. But this is about what I was expecting. The face of the headstock has a little bit more prominent of a glow, and there's nothing to really note here. Back of the headstock, again, you have that small chip, but no breaks, cracks, or repairs to this one. Here you can kind of see where the finish has been worn off the neck because it doesn't glow as much. And the back of the guitar is also glowing the way I would expect to see. And the sides of the guitar, again, you just have that light edge wear from where the finish has been rubbed off, probably by the strap, as well as rubbing against a player's body. So overall, it definitely passes the Blacklight test. Now, I'm fairly confident that this guitar would have originally came with a gig bag, so at one point in time it was upgraded to a Gibson USA case. You can see it's got some scratches to the outer Tolex, but for the most part it's in good shape. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, and a 5th back latch. The handle is also still intact, so it's a great case. The interior of the case is stained by dirt where the fretboard would rest against the top lid, but besides that, this case is in pretty good shape. If you don't like the locks system that's currently on it and you don't have the counterparts, you can remove that using this. That is inside the case. If you think you might be interested in being the next owner of this Gibson Les Paul Studio, feel free to contact me on my Facebook page and check out the link in the description. Thank you for watching, Troglodytes. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.